Hello and welcome to Morning Call for Thursday, the 22nd of August, 2019. I'm Fab from Hamburg. This is your tech news. Today it's all gaming. Pretty much Gamescom is in full swing and nothing much is happening apparently. So first off, there were news on Google Stadia. Google obviously having a presence at Gamescom and briefing journalists, and they have said that anything less than 200 million players on their service would be a failure, which is extremely ambitious. As Golem writes, Sony has sold a bit more than 100 million PlayStation 4s since it went on the market in 2013. So 200 million is a lot. So the Google people are basically saying normal or other platforms often reach their maximum users at like 100 or 150 million, and we're actually looking at 1 billion. Now, I'm thinking, interestingly enough, in no story I could find any journalist. I don't know if you were able to ask questions, but nobody asked them how many. They've sold this Founders Edition, right? As far as I know, we don't know how many of those have actually been sold. So it's gonna launch for those people in November. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted. It's bloody hay fever. I mean, I love the summer, but God, I can't wait. Can't wait for autumn. It's just horrible. Yeah. So I don't know. This Stadia thing, like Google should just shut the fuck up and prove that it works first. And don't prove to me that it works like in a demonstration on like a really good internet connection. What they need to do is they need to prove that it works for normal people with normal internet connections, where it's like Friday evening, which is when you come home from work and you want to play, which is also the time when all your neighbors fire up Netflix or Google Stadia if they have millions of users. And then your shitty cable connection in the German backwoods kind of needs to cope, and they need to prove that that works. I'm not believing that. That's basically my issue with the whole thing. Also, Google's always like, "Oh, it's gonna be so amazing. It's gonna be the most epic, biggest thing ever," and they come out with stuff like this, and people like tend to believe them. Which at the beginning, yes, they had such a success with their search engine, I understand. But I mean, if you look at the last years, like Google's infamous for just making these big claims and having these bombastic services and then just shutting them down, right? And people are like, "Oh, I'm like skeptical on social media. I'm saying I don't believe all this shit," and they're like, "They're Google, they'll figure that out." Is what people are saying. Yeah, do you remember when Google said they were gonna create the biggest social network? Remember Google social network? You know, yeah, that had millions of users, but it obviously didn't reach the expectations. Was like left in limbo for years and then finally shut down. So yeah, I'm just buying this when I see this. I mean, I'm not literally buying it. I have no use for this service because I have a gaming PC, but Jesus Christ, I can't wait for the first exclusive Stadia games. That's gonna be shitty. Um, Age of Empires Definitive Edition. Colleague Martin Fischer, who hi Martin, who I was talking about yesterday, writing about this on Heise. Um, good friend of mine, ex-colleague, has written like an insight thing. He's obviously talked to the developers of Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, and he is explaining how they put in 4K support and everything, and it's it's pretty amazing how a game. How big was it originally? 700 megabytes, and it's by they obviously had to because this engine, they're using the original engine, and this engine is basically just all sprites, right? So they, for 4K resolution, they had to increase all the graphics, all the images massively, but it's like not it's not composite like in modern games. It's like all separate images, and so it got just really huge. And they're using compression to make that smaller. Um, and it's currently at 60 gigabytes approximately, and they're still working on that. Um, but that's even not. I don't even care about that because storage space is cheap these days. Although you know 120 gigabytes is a lot. um, but the problem rather is, as Martin writes about this, basically the first definitive edition, Age of Empires 1, the basically the performance is okay when you just watch it normally, like when you play. You're zoomed into the map and stuff. But then you're zooming out, and the performance completely goes to shit. And it's apparently, Martin says he's obviously looked at this at Gamescom. Same thing for Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. And so it's basically the engine. So he asked the guy about it, and they're using the old engine. And he basically said, doesn't matter what hardware you throw at it, it's just gonna slow down, because basically the old engine, it wasn't made for this kind of thing. And also, as Martin points out, modern graphics cards, all these graphics cards manufacturers have been concentrating on 3D performance for these cards, obviously, for obvious reasons, and 2D performance just isn't being optimized and hasn't been for years, and this is a 2D engine. So it fucks it all up. So I don't know. The first one, it's all a nice idea they have, like on this one as well. They have new UI and stuff, and it looks great. But like, if it just slows down to shit once you zoom out, I mean, that's just not something you can. I mean, they're gonna put it out, but it's not something I would put out or buy. I don't know. Doesn't look that nice. Um, it's a bit disappointing, to be honest. Speaking of disappointment, Ubisoft has decided to rename Blue Byte, which is one of the biggest and probably most famous German developer. Was bought by Ubisoft in 2001. They have two studios, Blue Byte Düsseldorf, which is the original one, and Blue Byte Mainz. And they are going to rename them Ubisoft Mainz and Ubisoft Düsseldorf. They already had opened a third studio a while ago called Ubisoft Berlin. And they're saying they're doing this because they want to grow. They want to double their developers in Germany over the next few years, 2 years or so. And they want to give the studios a better name, and basically the more famous Ubisoft name and a better brand, so that they attract better developers, which could be true, because games developers are all young, they're all millennials or whatever the next generation is, and they don't know what Blue Byte is. But like, for me, this just destroys everything, because Blue Byte, they're the guys, they're like my fond childhood memories, right? Just give me a sec. They're the guys who back in the 90s made this. Schleichfahrt never took off outside of Germany. It's called Archimedean Dynasty there. And it's probably the best game ever made. It's certainly in my top 3 of games. See here, old Blue Byte logo. Just look at the box. Just look at the 3D box. It's just, I love that game. It's still in my top 3. Um, it's but just only because like newer games are just have so different capabilities. And that's always what I will connect with the name Blue Byte. The good games from the past. And for other people, it's like Siedler. They're actually working on a new Siedler. I think that's what the Düsseldorf studio is working on, which just got postponed at Gamescom to 2020. But for me, that is renaming those studios is that's just sad. That just cements the downfall because Blue Byte for me stands for like basically the only German games development studio that ever was worth a damn, and the only like big studios. There's lots of like AAA, lots of indie developers in Germany that are great, but they were like the AAA powerhouse back in the day, and powerhouse for German standards, and it just makes me sad. Ubisoft for me stands for just like mass compatible games that are shit that I don't want to play because they're fucking annoying and the story is shit, and just don't get me started. Yeah. So, this is also tangentially connected to games. I was talking for a while. A Motherboard seems to have this. Seem to be investigating these cloud companies. It started, I think, with Facebook or Amazon. I don't know. They're investigating all these, AI, smart home, smart devices manufacturers like Amazon and Google and all this stuff, where they're basically outsourcing. They have outsourced to companies that these people of employees of these companies will listen to voice recordings from these assistants and home devices, and they will to improve the quality of the AI voice recognition. They basically listen to stuff the AI can't make out, and then they type it in. And we kind of knew this was going on, but like the companies never said anything about it. And now there's a big investigation into this, and it turns out like Microsoft, I had reported on the fact that Microsoft actually made this more explicit. I think in response to this Motherboard investigation, that people are listening to that stuff, and now it comes out that actually the Xbox and Cortana on the Xbox and the stuff that was on there before, like the Kinect and stuff. I mean, they actually removed Cortana, I think this year, but they were actually listening to this for 6 years, from 2013. And Motherboard has a very interesting story on this. They talked to somebody who, employee of one of these contractors, obviously wanted to stay anonymous, and they keep like investigating this. So Joseph Cox, who's also on Twitter, obviously is asking for further leads, and they were saying this is often stuff that where the device just mistook somebody activating it, and then people just talking, often children, but lots of Xbox commands. Something, It says occasionally I heard Xbox tell Solus to heal or something similar, which would be a command for Dragon Age Inquisition. The former contractor said, referring to hearing of audio of in-game commands, or often people just chatting and then Cortana going on, and then there's turning on, and then no, I didn't mean you, Cortana. Stuff like that. Which I, kind of knew we were. It isn't really surprising that was going on, but it just completely tilts me that these companies. I mean, they have a statement from Microsoft saying, "We're not doing that anymore." Like Facebook and Amazon are taking this in house, and Microsoft saying we moved this now. Yeah, you moved this now, but like these fucking tech companies, they're just doing this like on the sly for years. They've been doing this, and then it's basically down to journalists and people like investigating this, and then they're suddenly, oh yeah, we were doing this. We'll stop now. And you're like, what the fuck? Oh, so you obviously knew it was wrong, and you just did it. You obviously knew that if people figured out that you were doing this, that would have been unpopular, but you still did it. And now Amazon, Facebook are taking it in-house, so I mean, still people listen to the crap. They're just now Facebook employees. Great, so much better. Just pisses me off. There's reports on a new Matrix movie. They're gonna start development on next year apparently. So Keanu Reeves and Carrie Ann Moss are apparently have said that they will be part of it. It's so development only starts next year. It's gonna be written and directed, or basically produced by the Wachowski twins. Now the Wachowski sisters, who used to be back in the original Matrix days, they used to be the Wachowski brothers. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I always think of Firefly. I always, when I see Gina Torres, I'm always thinking of Zoe. Do we need this? Do we need another? Didn't basically the second and third Matrix movie prove that the first movie was great, but they should have just left it there. It was just didn't carry. I think. I don't know. Do we need another Matrix movie? Just leave it. Look at what they did to Star Wars. Just leave it. Just stop it. Don't. It's not going to be good. Just think of something new. Christ. Make up something new. Your own. Fucking hell. And another last story here, also game connected, but also a security story. A security researcher has published a 0-day in Steam, because Valve, he was reporting it on HackerOne, which is like this bug bounty platform. And Valve, which has a presence there, closed down his report saying, so this is a privilege escalation. They're saying basically, okay, you have to have the ability to run code on the. That's what he is saying, right? According to his register story, because Valve didn't respond. No surprise there. They never respond to anything, especially not reporters asking them about security stuff. I know. From personal experience. So he's saying they closed that down with saying that's not a security vulnerability. I mean, they do have a point at one. They have a certain point, because basically if you're on the system, you also have the ability to execute code. You already need a vulnerability for that, and it's not as serious if you have a privilege escalation flaw. But on the other hand, that is still a software vulnerability in Steam that should be fixed. So the researcher obviously pissed off, not really subscribing to his whole thing, but basically Valve banned him on HackerOne. You can still use HackerOne, you just can't report anything to Valve. And so he just released a 0-day, which I can understand. I mean, they cut off all communication. There was obviously, I don't know, something going on. They were shouting at each other over there. I don't know. But that's just something you don't do as a company to security researchers. I can completely understand him releasing that now, because, I mean, the company closed down the area of communication, so why wouldn't you do that? The problem is, like, what tilts me about this is Valve saying this is, if anything, like, if the stuff he said is right, and we have to assume it's right because Valve's not saying, so we don't know. Gotta assume he's right about this then. If they really said it's not a security vulnerability, that's just the thing that tilts me. I mean, I could say it's not very critical. Thanks to the report, we'll fix it, but you won't get a bug bounty, or you won't get a big bug bounty, because that is out of the scope of our bug bounties, right? God, sorry, my nose. Give me a sec. Bloody hay fever. Jesus Christ. So that's out of the scope of our bug bounty, and we will not pay you for this, or just a small amount or something. That's totally okay. But saying it's not a security vulnerability is obviously bullshit, because it is a security vulnerability. And as the guy points out, Steam is a program that is made to download code from the internet, often not trusted, because, I mean, we know Valve doesn't check the games in Steam, especially not for security vulnerabilities, I don't think. They never said they do that, and I don't think they do. Aside from some automatic tests that we know from Apple Play Store and Google Play Store that those can be circumvented. And it runs them with administrator privileges. I mean, Steam is horrible. If you look deeply into what Steam does, it's just like, that whole overlay that Steam, like if a game doesn't really support this kind of thing, basically what Steam does is to display its overlays is DLL injection. Basically injects itself in between the game and what your computer displays, and there's like this horrible stuff you can do with that. I mean, there's lots of security vulnerabilities in there, and they should fix them. Obviously, they're not as high profile as, or they shouldn't have as high a priority as if you can use Steam from the outside to just own a system or get code execution. Sure, but there's still flaws that need to be addressed, and this is just not how you to deal with security researchers. Just dumb. Just don't do that. Anyway, that's it for me. I'll gotta, I don't know, inject myself with some drugs or something to get better here and get some work to do today. Anyway, I hope you have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, last day of the week. Yay! With some more tech news, and until then. Oh, somebody is asking what accent I have. Yes, I'm German. That is a bit of a German accent. I've been trying to get rid of it for years. Oh, he left already. Goodbye. Or was saying bye because I said bye. Anyway, yes, it's a German accent. It is. Trying for years to get an Australian accent, but it's never really worked. Might. Anyway, have a good day. Whatever you're doing, professionally or not, do it well, and I'll see you tomorrow. Until then, guten Tag, tschüss, have a nice day.